So the Baltimore Ravens are playing against the Atlanta Falcons in a little week 2 preseason action. A lot of cool and interesting things to look into going into this game, which starts in about 30 minutes. So I gotta hurry up. I gotta get on. I gotta keep on keeping on right now, because if not, kickoff will be happening right in the next room right now. But look, the Baltimore Ravens, Atlanta Falcons. It's been a crazy week for the Baltimore Ravens with, accidents and illnesses and just, once again, that weird aura around the Baltimore Ravens, and especially the offseason and more so the preseason. Like, it just gets kind of weird. But welcome in, everybody, to the show once again. We're gonna just talk a little bit. I'm gonna look at a couple of these articles and just kind of give us all a little bit of something to look into going into this game, because the preseason is weird, man. The preseason is always interesting because it's not that you necessarily get to see some of your favorite players, but you get to see some of these up and comers. You get to see some of these guys who you hope to see make an impact. And I know Trenton Simpson is on that list. I know Tez Walker is on that list for a lot of guys. So of course the offensive line battle is on that list for a lot of Ravens fans and Ravens flock alike. So let's jump right into it. We just gonna, this gonna be short because I ain't got much time anyway. But this gonna be short, and we just gonna talk about it. Let me know below what you guys think as well. What are you guys most excited for as we get into this conversation, this discussion? What are you guys most excited for? I think for me, just to kind of break the ice a little bit. For me, the biggest thing that I'm most excited for, I think, is this offensive line battle more than anything. Like, yes, I want to see Tez Walker. Yes, I want to see what Trenton Simpson's going to do. I want to see what exactly we got from both of these guys. But at the same time, I'm sitting here thinking I would just simply love to see this offensive line and how they're going to play, because I think this offensive line is going to be very important. We all know that the Ravens and the offensive line, it's been a little foggy, especially since Marshall Yonder retired in year 3 of Lamar Jackson's, after year 2, but going into year 3 of Lamar Jackson's career, and it's been kind of an ever revolving door. And this offensive line is, I don't want to say been completely overhauled, but if there's going to be an overhaul in the offensive line, it kind of looks like this. You only returning 2 of the guys that you had starting last year when it comes to Ronnie Stanley at left tackle, and when it comes to your center as well. It's just that's just kind of how it is. That's just kind of how it is, and it's very much so going to be interesting to see what the Ravens do and how those battles play out, because I think there's a lot of, it's funny. We talk about how unproven the wide receiver room is. And I say that all the time on this show, how unproven this wide receiver room is. It's not that they're not good. It's not that they're not talented. They're just unproven. We just don't know what they can do yet. And I think this offensive line is going to be more of the same, because especially when you look at, when you look at Ronnie Stanley, right, and you look at, the returning Tyler Linderbaum. Other than that, that's about as deep as it goes in terms of guys who's played together before. And you could venture to say, outside of Linderbaum, maybe there were more consistent options on the offensive line last year to begin with. So it's very interesting. And I still question it a little bit. I'm a little surprised in terms of this overhaul they're trying to do. I'm a little surprised, once again, going back to Zeitler, I'm a little surprised they didn't keep him as just a veteran presence to be there, who's been, at least for me, from what I remember, from what, from my memory, has been pretty consistent. So let's jump right into it, though. No more soliloquies about the offensive line, but let's jump right into it. So jumping into this preview that the Baltimore Ravens put out themselves, and kind of some things to look into, maybe some things I wasn't thinking about, maybe some things you all weren't thinking about. So let's jump into it. I got a couple of things we can look into, a couple of articles we can look into, just to give us a little bit more to think about. So, because like I said, I think personally for me it's offensive line, but let's see if there's anything else that piques my interest, and also y'all's interest as well. So some of the key storylines going into it with Andrew Voorhees remaining the strong favorite to win the job at left guard. But also we got Faalele on that other side as well. So it was funny. We were talking about this. So Andrew Voorhees, and I'll be interested to see the depth chart as well. So with Andrew Voorhees, especially if he's the favorite over Ben Cleveland, who once again we talked about it before. Ben Cleveland's a guy who's been there and done that as well. So it just makes you think, man. It makes you think. I'm gonna key y'all into this. I'm gonna slip y'all over here into the depth chart so y'all can see maybe a little bit. I don't know if I can. Can I? Oh, okay, I went the wrong way. Okay. This is not easy as I thought it was. There we go. I wanted to zoom in a little bit so you guys could at least see this offensive line right here. So looking into it, Andrew Voorhees, the favorite to win over Ben Cleveland, which we've seen Ben Cleveland have some good games here and there, but it still will be interesting because Ben Cleveland is like a mountain of a man, right? Like he really is. Like he's a really big dude, a huge dude in terms of the offensive line. And it's always been surprising that he hasn't been able to break out a little bit. I don't know. I don't know if he's not as nimble as some of these other guys. He can't, I would think he would be really good with his run blocking, but I think it's his pass protection where he struggles a little bit before he's, I think they brought him in to be that guy originally anyway. So I'm not necessarily surprised that he's doing well. And then I think, even at right tackle, when you go back down to right tackle, it seems like those two guys have flipped because I think originally when we talked last week, Patrick McCarry was the guy who was edging out the right tackle battle a little bit, at least starting out. He's the veteran. We know we drafted Rosengarten probably to take that spot anyway. And McCarry has always been kind of like we talked about before, the Swiss Army knife of the offensive line. He's the guy you keep for when you need somebody to play a position for a couple of games. I honestly don't know how trustworthy he is as a starter, to be honest with you, because I don't think we've seen it yet. So then Faalele and Lualu from NC State. I think with Faalele, I'm very interested to see Faalele because I watched a little bit of the previous preseason game, and Faalele looked okay, but I think I've always said I think him at guard is going to be better than him at tackle, and I think it gives him a little more room to possibly grow a little bit at right guard at the NFL level. So I think that's another part of it too. I think this offensive line battle, kind of like we said before, I think is going to be big. It's going to be big. I think no pun intended for the size of the guys that are lining up at offensive line, but it's going to be building this wall around Lamar Jackson, and for Derrick Henry and for Keaton Mitchell when he comes back, and hopefully to protect in terms of these guys coming out here and being able to get open and in the wide receiver room as well. I think it's possible that kind of like we saw, what was it? What was from last year? Kind of like we saw last year. I think when you look at it, it's possible that this offensive line could be far better than we ever thought it could be, right? Because usually I think a lot of times when we temper our expectations a little bit and we say, hey, I don't know how good this wide receiver room is going to be, right? That's when they become great. Like I think there was a lot of seasons where we didn't know how good the running back room could be, but the running back room still proved that they were still, they proved to be better than our expectations, right? I think sometimes for the offensive line, it's been like that as well. Even sometimes for the receiver room, it's been like that. I know for a fact last year for the corner room, it was like that. We were like, I don't really know what we have in the corners right now. So that's another part of it too. It's like, I think we could see this offensive line be better than it has been. But once again, I think there's going to be a mesh period that's going to take shape too. There's going to be a period of time early on in the season where it's going to take a little bit of time for them to mesh together. So, it'll be interesting to see if the starters play at all. We know the checkered past of the Ravens when it comes to the preseason and injuries and stuff like that. So that's another part too. It'll be interesting to see how much the starters play, especially in game 2 and especially in game 3. Coming up today and coming up next week, it'll be interesting to see how much the Ravens play their starters because of the injury history of what we've seen in the past. But going back to those key storylines, so interestingly enough, and I like I said, this is my first time really looking at this. Ben Cleveland making his his second straight preseason start at center to be the backup for Lindenbaum, which is very interesting. But I mean, it's very interesting. But this is literally what the Ravens do. Like I don't know why I'm even sitting here surprised by it. The Ravens, they have a tendency of putting guys out of position and hoping that they be successful. Now, luckily for everyone, Ben Cleveland would be the backup center, so we'll see how that goes. But seeing kind of some of the other guys in the offensive line is too. I mean, I think Salah. Honestly, he's the he. I don't know how much of a battle he's going to have with Josh Jones and Tayshaun Martin, but we'll see. I think Josh Jones more than anything. But once again, that's another part of that battle that we're going to have to see, especially considering how possibly the offensive line could fare. I guess we'll see. David Ojabo. Will David Ojabo suit up in this game? I mean, I think that's a no. He wasn't cleared to play last week. I don't know. The David Ojabo experiment is a video within itself. And I don't, with limited time, I don't want to get too much into it, but I would love to see him at least for a couple of series, maybe even a quarter, just because we just ain't seen much out of him, man. We haven't seen much out of him, and like I said, that's a concern I have. I have a concern when it comes to the edge rushers this year because I don't. There is no Clowney on this team, and for what Clowney was last year, and for what our expectations were of Clowney last year versus what he ended up being, there's no Clowney on this team right now. There's no Judon on this team right now, even though he was available for trade, and the Ravens didn't pursue that. But that's a whole other topic for a whole other day within itself. But Ojabo, I mean, I would love to see Ojabo just break out, like get healthy, break out. But I mean, I think he's had some setbacks even with the knee injury. And like I said, this is from what I've seen on social media. None of this is confirmed, so don't hold me to the fire on that one. But I remember at least hearing something about potential setbacks with him. But if, according to this article, at least, if he might be possibly ready, then it'll be interesting to see him. I mean, once again, one of those guys who's seen flashes, but he just hasn't been able to find his way, So, in terms of the offensive scheme, will they be a little sharper in terms of their performance? I guess we'll see. I mean, I want to see Todd Monken really throw some things at the wall and not necessarily open up the whole playbook, but show some different stuff. Show some different stuff. I know last week, of course, you're using all your backups. You're not going to see everything, but I mean, Todd Monken to be the offensive mind that he's supposed to be, I think you still want to see a little bit of success when it comes to the Ravens offense and not, maybe a little more than 13 points on the board, especially with hopefully talented offense to begin with. So we'll see. I mean, like I said, I know it's different. I know you take that with a grain of salt. Players to watch. Owen Wright, basically because of what's happening with Keaton Mitchell and, how slow a process is, that it could be for Keaton Mitchell to come back. I mean, he's just not going to be ready for week one, more than likely. Owen Wright is a guy who, you kind of just got to look out for more so for depth. I think it's obvious that Derrick Henry and Justice Hill can take care of business until Keaton Mitchell gets back. But like we said before, Keaton Mitchell is a guy who he's literally a change of pace. He's literally a change of pace. So, and he's a guy you're going to really have to look into. Little family ties right here with Quadir Ishmael, son of Quadri Ishmael. We all know that the Ravens can't have enough tight ends. I don't, it's one of those situations where it makes you wonder if Ishmael will even get a lot of chances just because the Ravens, it says it right there. The Ravens are deep at tight end. And I mean, they are. I mean, you got Kolar, you got Likely, you got Andrews, and it honestly, keeping a fourth tight end on the roster more so, also could go with the accident aspect of what happened with Mark Andrews this week. Glad he's okay, but that's part of it, right? But at the same time, the only reason you would keep a fourth tight end possibly right now is if you were looking to shop Andrews, and I just don't see that being a thing at this moment. Once again, whole nother video for a whole nother day. I don't see that being a true thing. But and of course, Trenton Simpson. So with some injuries and everything, Trenton Simpson could be somebody seeing some significant action. And I want to see him. I want to see more of him. I want to see what he can do, and I want to see what that means for Trenton Simpson. Because I mean, honestly, Trenton Simpson is going to probably see a lot of snaps this season. So to see what he can do, to see if he can fill that PQ role, especially alongside Roquan Smith when that time comes. I mean, if you can see some flashes from him even before that, then putting him beside Roquan is just going to be even better. So very, very interesting. Let's real quick click over to see. I'm curious to see who the Falcons may have play a little bit in this. So let's peek over to their depth chart here. So pulling it up for you guys so you guys can see it a little bit. So, I mean, this is the current depth chart. I don't, honestly, when I think about it, I don't know if all these guys will play. I think this is just their depth chart going into this week. Because, I mean, I don't know if Kirk Cousins is going to play a whole lot. Penix has looked pretty good. I feel like we'll see a lot of Penix, a lot of Taylor Heineke. I mean, Kirk might play for a series or so. We'll see how it goes. It's just so different with the 3 preseason games and the extra regular season game. And like we said before, in a situation that hits home, injuries in the preseason, man, like it makes you think. Like it makes you think, what should you do? Do you just let the week 1 game be your extra preseason game, or what do you do? Because I mean, I think we'll see some Michael Penix definitely, some Taylor Heineke definitely. Some of the backup receivers. I mean, we might see a little bit of the starters, but I don't necessarily see us seeing a lot. I mean, I think with these guys, it'll just be interesting to see who they bring up there, because in terms of depth as well. I mean, even for the Ravens, going back to the Ravens situation, I don't necessarily see Eddie Jackson playing soon. I don't see Eddie Jackson playing today, but like I said, it's just so interesting, and kind of like we said before with Nate Wiggins and injuries in that, with that situation too. It's like, that's the tough part right now, especially for the Ravens who have been burned by the preseason in previous times. It really makes you think a little bit. It really makes you question it sometimes, and it makes you be okay with not playing your starters as much. But at the same time, I think if we're gonna be honest, you can't play scared either. Like you can't. I'm not saying play the guys too much, but I think they still deserve a series. That they still deserve time to build that chemistry up. I mean, I think we'll definitely see them in week 3. See some starters in week 3, even if it's for a series, even if it's just to get a little momentum going, get a little chemistry going, especially with new offensive line, new guys in the receiver room, and trying to build chemistry with that too. It'll be very interesting. But I'm excited, man. I think the Ravens lost, which they don't do very often in the preseason. We all know, but they did lose their last preseason game, and it simply, it's one of those things. where it also makes you think too, are they preparing for the preseason a little bit differently than maybe they were in the past? Maybe they're not running as guys as hard as they were previously for the preseason, simply because of what we've seen over the past couple seasons. Maybe not last year, but the years prior. So it'll definitely be interesting. It'll definitely be interesting. I'm excited, man. I like I said, I want to see this pass rush as well. Like that's another part of it. That's another part that I really want to see is what this pass rush is going to look like this year. And is it possible that the Ravens have to, kind of like they've often had to do, make a late signing and grab another pass rusher? I don't know who's out there. I think Ngakoue's still out there. I think he just wants a lot of money and people don't want to pay him that. So, I mean, I don't really know who else is left, but it's possible that the Ravens have to make that decision too, and see if possibly they need to grab one more guy. And I think they need one more guy. I mean, they need somebody to fill Jadeveon Clowney's role, I would say. And even if that's in a trade or something like that, I mean, I don't know, unless they just truly believe in Ojabo and Owe. But like I said before, with Owe, I think you just got to let Owe go. Like, and I don't mean cut him. I'm saying, like, let him be, let him play to his strengths. Let him play to being fast. Maybe not necessarily play to, the pass rush skill per se, but like, let him kind of be maybe the Swiss Army knife of the edge rushers, and let the guys with more advanced pass rushing skills, let them do their thing. But as always, definitely hope you guys enjoyed. It's almost time for the game, so let me know down below what you guys think is going to happen. Who are you guys most looking forward to see in the Ravens preseason? I'll definitely be back next week. I might actually have a real setup next week, but I'll definitely be back next week to talk to you all once again about these Baltimore Ravens. We'll see you guys on the next episode of the show. Until next time, my friends.